Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the starship Vengeance, staring at the empty space where Earth's orbital stations used to be. 25 years had passed since that terrible day, but the memory still burned in his mind like a fresh wound. He could still see the flames consuming humanity's greatest achievements in a matter of hours. Back then, Jake had been just a young engineer working on Luna Station. The day started like any other. Scientists were excited about Dr. Lisa Martinez's latest discovery on a distant planet called Kepler 442b. She had found something amazing in ancient, alien ruins, technology that could change everything for humanity. The discovery was incredible. Hidden deep in the ruins were machines that could bend space itself, allowing ships to travel between stars in days instead of years. Lisa and her team worked day and night to understand how it worked. They called it quantum tunneling drive technology, and it was beyond anything humans had ever imagined. For months, humanity celebrated. They were no longer stuck in their small corner of the galaxy. The Galactic Coalition, a group of alien species that ruled most of known space, had noticed Earth several years earlier. At first, the aliens seemed friendly. They welcomed humans as new members of their great alliance. The coalition was led by several powerful species, but the Zephyrians were the strongest. Their leader, Overlord Vexstar, spoke smooth words about peace and cooperation. He visited Earth personally, shaking hands with world leaders and promising a bright future for humanity among the stars. "You humans have such potential," Vexstar had said during his famous speech at the United Nations. "Together, we will explore the galaxy and bring peace to all worlds." But everything changed when Lisa's team made their breakthrough with the alien technology. The quantum tunneling drives were not just fast, they were revolutionary. Ships using this technology could appear anywhere in the galaxy almost instantly. It was power beyond imagination. Jake remembered the exact moment when humanity's fate was sealed. He was in the engineering bay of Luna Station when the emergency alarms started screaming. Amy Collins, then just a colonel in Earth Defense, came running through the corridors shouting orders. "All stations, this is not a drill. Coalition ships are powering weapons. Repeat, Coalition ships are targeting our installations." At first, nobody believed it. The Coalition were their allies. There had to be some mistake. But the sensor readings were clear. Dozens of alien warships had appeared around Earth, and they were not here for a friendly visit. The attack came without warning. Massive energy beams tore through the orbital stations like they were made of paper. The lunar colonies disappeared in brilliant flashes of light. Mars Base 1, humanity's pride and joy, was reduced to burning wreckage in minutes. Jake watched in horror as the International Space Station exploded, taking with it hundreds of scientists and crew members. These were people he knew, friends who had shared meals and stories with him just days before. Now they were gone, vaporized by alien weapons. On Earth's surface, the attack was even worse. Coalition ground forces landed in major cities, claiming they were there to secure dangerous technology and protect the galaxy from human aggression. But their real purpose became clear when they started rounding up scientists, engineers, and anyone who had worked on the quantum drive project. Dr. Lisa Martinez barely escaped from her laboratory as Coalition soldiers stormed the building. Rick Stone, who commanded Earth's small space navy, managed to get some ships away from the dock before the aliens destroyed everything. But most of humanity's fleet was caught by surprise and destroyed before they could even raise their shields. The Coalition's excuse for the attack was simple but cruel. They claimed that humans were too dangerous to possess quantum tunnel technology. According to their official statement, humanity was an aggressive species with violent tendencies that would use the technology to conquer other worlds. "We cannot allow such weapons to fall into the hands of a species that has spent its entire history at war with itself," Overlord Vexstar announced to the galaxy. "This action is necessary to preserve peace." But Jake and the other survivors knew the truth. The Coalition was not afraid of human violence. They were afraid of human potential. The quantum drives would have made humanity equal to any species in the galaxy. No longer would Earth be dependent on Coalition trade routes or technology. Humans could explore and settle anywhere they wanted. The aliens could not allow that. For thousands of years, they had controlled the galaxy by controlling who could travel between the stars. They decided who got advanced technology and who remained primitive. Humanity's discovery threatened to break their monopoly on power as the attack continued. Stories of heroism emerged from the chaos. General Amy Collins led the evacuation of civilians from burning cities. Captain Ben Taylor used his small patrol ship to rescue survivors from destroyed space stations. Engineer Mike Davis kept the power running in underground shelters while alien ships bombed the surface above. But for every story of courage, there were 10 stories of loss. Billions of humans died in the first week of the invasion. Entire families were wiped out. Cities that had stood for centuries were reduced to radioactive ruins. The survivors who escaped into space faced an impossible choice. They could surrender and accept slavery under Coalition rule, or they could fight back against impossible odds. Most chose to fight. Jake's own escape came by pure luck. He was working on a damaged shuttle when the attack began. Rick Stone's ship picked him up during a desperate rescue mission to save anyone they could find. As their small fleet jumped away from Earth's solar system, Jake looked back one last time at his burning homeworld. That was 25 years ago. Now, Jake commanded his own ship and lead raids against Coalition supply lines. The scattered survivors had grown into something the aliens never expected, a resistance that refused to die. The bridge doors opened, and Lisa Martinez walked in. She was older now, her hair gray from years of stress and loss, but her eyes still burned with the same determination that had driven her to unlock the secrets of the quantum drives. "Any word from the outer colonies?" she asked. Jake nodded. "Ben's team hit another supply convoy yesterday. They freed 200 human prisoners and captured Coalition data files." Lisa smiled grimly. "Good. The aliens want to play this game. We'll show them how humans really fight." Outside the view screen, space looked empty and cold. But Jake knew that somewhere out there, other human ships were moving through the darkness, carrying the flame of rebellion to every corner of the galaxy. The Coalition had betrayed Earth and tried to destroy humanity. Now it was time to take back everything they had stolen. Ben Taylor crouched behind a piece of twisted metal, watching Coalition guards patrol the prison camp. The facility sat on a barren moon, hidden from most space traffic. Inside those walls were 300 human prisoners, men and women who had been captured during raids or found hiding on remote worlds. The rescue mission had taken weeks to plan. Ben's team included Sarah Johnson, their best pilot, and Mike Davis, who could hack almost any alien computer system. They had waited for the perfect moment when the camp's defenses would be weakest. "Guards are changing shifts now," Sarah whispered through the communication device. Her ship waited in orbit, ready to extract them once the mission was complete. "You have maybe 10 minutes before the new team arrives." Ben nodded and signaled to his team. They moved quickly across the rocky ground, using the moon's low gravity to leap between boulders. The Coalition had built this prison far from any major trade routes, thinking it would be safe from human attack. They were wrong. Mike reached the main gate first and pulled out his tools. Coalition technology was advanced, but it had one weakness. The aliens always assumed their enemies were less intelligent than them. They used security codes that followed predictable patterns, making them easier to break than they should be. "Almost got it," Mike muttered, sweat dripping down his face despite the cold air. "These guards really need better passwords." The gate clicked open, and Ben's team slipped inside. The prison camp was laid out in a simple grid, with barracks for prisoners on one side and guard towers on the other. Most of the alien guards were Zephyrians, tall and thin with gray skin and black eyes that showed no emotion. Ben had learned to hate those eyes. During his years in the Resistance, the Zephyrians saw humans as nothing more than dangerous animals that needed to be caged. They spoke about human prisoners the way people might talk about wild beasts in a zoo. The first barracks was full of civilians, families who had been caught trying to escape Coalition space. Ben's heart ached as he saw children clinging to their parents, all of them thin and scared. These people had done nothing wrong except be born human. "Stay quiet," Ben told them. "We're here to get you out, but we need to move fast." In the second barracks, Ben found what he was really looking for: the missing scientists. Among them was Dr. Patricia Lewis, who had worked with Lisa Martinez on the original Quantum Drive project. The Coalition had been hunting her for years, hoping to force her to reveal the secrets of human technology. "Ben, is that really you?" Patricia could barely believe her eyes. She had been in Coalition custody for 2 years, and the experience had left her weak and tired. "We're getting you out of here," Ben promised. "All of you." But as they moved toward the exit, alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Coalition guards came running from all directions, their weapons already charged and ready to fire. Someone had discovered the break-in. "Run," Ben shouted, pushing the prisoners toward the gate. Sarah's ship descended from orbit, its guns blazing as it attacked the guard towers. The Coalition soldiers scrambled for cover, but they were caught off guard by the sudden assault. Mike worked frantically to keep the gate open while Ben and his team led the prisoners to safety. Energy blasts from alien weapons lit up the night sky, but Sarah's precise flying kept the worst of the fire away from the escaping humans. "We're not going to make it," Mike called out. More Coalition ships were appearing in the distance, coming to help defend the prison. That was when Ben made a decision that would become legend among the Resistance. Instead of running, he turned back toward the prison and started destroying everything he could find. If they could not save all the prisoners today, he would make sure the Coalition could never use this place again. "Get everyone to the ship," he ordered. "I'll buy you time." Ben fought his way through the facility, setting charges that Mike had prepared earlier. The explosions tore through the prison's power systems and communication arrays. By the time he reached Sarah's ship, the entire camp was burning. As they flew away, Ben looked down at the rescued prisoners. They were free, but the cost had been high. Several of his team members had been wounded in the fighting, and they had left behind dozens of prisoners they could not save in time. But Patricia Lewis brought news that made the dangerous mission worthwhile. During her imprisonment, she had overheard Coalition scientists discussing their research on captured humans. The aliens were trying to understand what made humanity so adaptable and strong. "They're scared of us," Patricia explained as they traveled back to the Resistance base. "The Coalition thought they understood humans, but we keep surprising them. Every time they think they have us figured out, we do something they never expected." The Resistance base was hidden inside a massive asteroid, in an unnamed system. Over the years, it had grown from a few scattered ships into a real military installation. Thousands of humans lived there now, along with members of other species who had also been betrayed by the Coalition. Amy Collins, now a general, greeted them as they arrived. She had aged in the 5 years since Earth's fall, but her determination had only grown stronger. Under her leadership, the Resistance had evolved from desperate survivors into a real fighting force. "Good work, Ben," she said, reviewing the mission report. "The intelligence Patricia brought back is exactly what we needed." In the days that followed, the rescued scientists shared everything they had learned about Coalition weaknesses. The aliens had superior technology and more ships, but they had problems of their own. Many species in the Coalition were unhappy with Zephyrian rule, and some were secretly helping the human Resistance. Dr. Lisa Martinez had been busy during the years since Earth's fall. Working in a hidden laboratory on an ice moon, she had developed new weapons and technologies that could give humanity an edge in battle. Her greatest breakthrough was something she called the neural mesh interface. It lets a human pilot connect directly to their ship's computer, Lisa explained to a gathering of resistance leaders. Our reaction times become faster than any alien can match. We can think and move as one with our ships. The technology was dangerous. Prolonged use could damage a pilot's brain. But volunteers stepped forward anyway. Human pilots, using the neural mesh, could outfight coalition ships twice their size, dancing through space with impossible precision. Meanwhile, Mike Davis had been working on cyber warfare. He discovered that coalition computer networks had the same weakness as their security systems. They were designed by beings who thought they were smarter than everyone else. This arrogance made them predictable. I can plant viruses in their communication systems, Mike reported. Every time they send a message, our code spreads a little further through their network. But the Resistance's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactics. It was their allies. Other species had also suffered under coalition rule, and they were eager to help anyone fighting back against the Zephyrians. Kelly Brooks had become the Resistance's diplomat, traveling to secret meetings with alien leaders who opposed the coalition. The Corvin warriors were natural fighters who admired human courage. The Meridian telepaths shared intelligence that helped the Resistance stay one step ahead of coalition patrols. "We're not alone in this fight," Kelly reported after returning from a successful negotiation. "Half the galaxy is tired of Zep control. They just needed someone brave enough to take the first step." As the 5th year of Resistance ended, humanity had grown from scattered survivors into the core of a galaxy-wide rebellion. They had rescued thousands of prisoners, destroyed dozens of coalition facilities, and proven that humans could not be broken. Jake Harrison stood in the main command center, looking at star maps that showed resistance activity across dozens of systems. Red dots marked coalition strongholds, while green dots showed worlds where the Resistance had gained support. "The aliens made one big mistake," he said to Amy Collins. "They thought destroying Earth would destroy our spirit. They didn't understand that home isn't a place, it's the people you fight beside." Amy nodded, watching technicians prepare for the next phase of their war. The Resistance had grown strong enough to move beyond hit-and-run attacks. Soon, they would be ready to take back whole star systems. "The coalition wanted to teach the galaxy that humans were dangerous," Amy said with a cold smile. "Let's show them how right they were." Outside the asteroid base, human ships patrolled the darkness. Each one carried the hopes of billions who had died on Earth, and the dreams of those who would one day see their homeworld free again. The Resistance had survived its darkest hour. Now it was time to fight back. Admiral Rick Stone stood on the bridge of Earth's Wrath, watching his fleet prepare for the largest battle since humanity's fall. Operation Homecoming was about to begin, a coordinated attack on coalition strongholds across 3 star systems. After years of hiding in the shadows, the human Resistance was ready to show the galaxy what they had become. "All ships report ready," announced Captain Danny Foster from the tactical station. Danny had become the Resistance's master of strategy, developing new ways to fight that the coalition had never seen before. His ideas seemed crazy at first, but they worked better than anyone expected. The target was New Geneva, a coalition military base that controlled trade routes through the entire sector. The facility was heavily defended, with twice as many ships as the human fleet could bring to bear. But Rick had learned that numbers did not always decide who won a battle. "Remember the plan," Rick announced over the fleet communication system. "We hit fast, we hit hard, and we show these aliens that humans don't give up." Jake Harrison commanded the left wing of the attack, leading 12 ships in a wide circle around the enemy base. His job was to draw coalition forces away from the main target, while Danny's special tactics came into play. The battle began exactly as planned. Coalition sensors detected Jake's ships first, and enemy vessels moved to intercept what they thought was the main attack. The alien commanders were following standard military doctrine: concentrate, Your forces against the largest threat, but humans had learned to think differently. While the coalition ships chased Jake's wing, the real attack came from 3 other directions at once. Small groups of human ships appeared throughout the system, each one targeting critical systems on the enemy base. Swarm tactics activated, Danny reported with satisfaction. Instead of fighting like a traditional fleet, the human ships moved like a pack of wolves, each group coordinating with the others, but operating independently. The coalition commanders were confused. Their sensors showed human ships everywhere, but no clear formation they could counter. Every time they moved to attack one group, 2 more appeared behind them. Sarah Johnson led her squadron in a diving attack on the base's shield generators. Her ship danced between enemy fire, the neural mesh interface allowing her to react faster than any alien pilot could follow. She could feel her ship's systems as if they were part of her own body. Shield Generator 1 is down, she reported, pulling her ship through a series of impossible turns that left the coalition defenders spinning in confusion. At the same time, Mike Davis led a cyber attack against the base's computer systems. His team had spent months developing new viruses designed specifically for Zephyrian technology. As the digital assault began, coalition communications started breaking down. Their command network is fragmenting, Mike announced with glee. They can't coordinate their defenses anymore. But the coalition was not helpless. Their ships were still powerful, and they had experience fighting many different species. As the battle continued, they began to adapt to human tactics. Admiral Vexkin, the Zephyrian commander of New Geneva, was no fool. He had studied reports of human attacks and suspected this day would come. As his forces struggled with the swarm tactics, he prepared his secret weapon. "Deploy the gravity mines," he ordered. "Create a barrier around the base that their small ships cannot penetrate." The mines were invisible until they activated, creating crushing gravitational fields that could tear apart any ship that came too close. Jake's wing ran straight into the trap, and 3 human vessels were destroyed instantly. "Pull back," Rick ordered, seeing his careful plan falling apart. "All ships, avoid the base perimeter." But Danny Foster had been expecting something like this. The coalition always relied on superior technology to win their battles. That was exactly what he was counting on. "Phase 2, Danny announced calmly. "All ships, begin mirror formation." The human fleet suddenly changed tactics completely. Instead of attacking the base directly, they spread out in a wide circle and began moving in perfect synchronization. To the coalition sensors, it looked like the humans were retreating. Vexkin was puzzled but pleased. "The humans are running," he told his officers. "Send pursuit squadrons to finish them." That was his mistake. As coalition ships moved away from the base to chase the human fleet, they left gaps in their defensive formation. And in those gaps, something impossible happened. Ships began appearing out of nowhere. Not human ships. These were coalition vessels, but they were firing on their own base. The defending forces found themselves under attack from behind by their own reinforcements. "What is happening?" Vexcon demanded, but his communications officers could not explain. According to their sensors, the attacking ships were sending proper coalition identification codes. The truth was simpler than the aliens could imagine. Mike Davis had not just planted viruses in the coalition network, he had taken control of their automated systems. The ships attacking the base were cargo vessels and patrol craft that had been hijacked by human hackers. "Their own technology is fighting against them," Mike reported with satisfaction. "I've got control of maybe 30 coalition ships across the system." The combination of swarm tactics and cyber warfare was devastating. Coalition forces found themselves fighting on multiple fronts against enemies they could not identify or predict. Their advanced sensors and communication systems, normally their greatest advantages, had become weapons turned against them. Jake's wing regrouped and struck at the base's weapon systems while the defenders were distracted. Ben Taylor led a boarding party onto the main platform, fighting through corridors filled with alien soldiers who had never expected to face humans in hand-to-hand combat. The Coalition had made another mistake in their understanding of humanity. They knew humans were aggressive, but they thought this made them wild and undisciplined. They had never faced human soldiers who combined that aggression with careful training and tactical intelligence. Ben's team moved through the station like a precision machine, each member covering the others as they advanced toward the command center. The Zephyrian defenders were skilled, but they fought as individuals. Humans fought as a unit. Command center secured, Ben reported as the last alien officer surrendered. We have control of the base. But Admiral Vexkin was not finished. As defeat became certain, he activated the base's self-destruct system. If the Coalition could not hold New Geneva, they would make sure the humans could not use it either. That was when Lisa Martinez's preparations proved their worth. She had anticipated this possibility and developed countermeasures for Coalition self-destruct systems. As Vexkin watched in horror, his own base refused to obey his final command. "Impossible," he whispered. "How do they know our security codes?" The answer was that humans had learned to think like their enemies. Every Coalition prisoner they captured, every computer system they hacked, every piece of technology they studied, had taught them more about how their opponents operated. Patricia Lewis, the scientist rescued from the prison camp, had provided crucial intelligence about Coalition psychology and tactics. Other rescued prisoners had shared their knowledge of alien technology and military procedures. Each small piece of information had become part of a larger understanding. As the battle ended, Admiral Rick Stone surveyed the captured base. The victory at New Geneva was more than just a military success. It was proof that humanity could fight the Coalition on equal terms and win. "Send a message to every resistance cell in the galaxy," Rick ordered. "Tell them we have shown that the Coalition can be defeated. Their ships can be captured, their bases can be taken, and their technology can be turned against them." But the most important message was not sent by communication systems. News of the human victory spread through the galaxy in a different way, carried by traders and travelers who had witnessed the impossible. A species that had been declared dead was not only alive, but fighting back. The Coalition's claims about human weakness and inability to adapt had been proven false in the most dramatic way possible, on dozens of worlds. Other oppressed species began to whisper about resistance. If humans could challenge the mighty Coalition and win, perhaps freedom was possible for everyone. Admiral Vexkin was brought before Rick Stone as a prisoner. The Zephyrian was still proud and defiant, even in defeat. "You have won one battle," he said coldly. "But the Coalition is vast. You cannot fight us all." Rick looked at the alien commander with something that might have been pity. "You still don't understand," he said quietly. "We're not fighting you because we think we can win easily. We're fighting because some things are worth dying for. And we're not fighting alone anymore," added Jake Harrison, joining them in the captured command center. "Every species you've oppressed, every world you've conquered, every being you've enslaved, they're all watching now. They're seeing that the Coalition can bleed, as Earth's wrath prepared to leave New Geneva with its prize." Rick Stone recorded a message that would be broadcast throughout Coalition space. It was not a threat or a demand for surrender. It was something much more dangerous, a promise to every human in the galaxy, to every being who values freedom, to every world that dreams of independence. "The Coalition told you we were dead. They were wrong. We are humanity, and we do not surrender. We do not forget, and we do not forgive." The message ended with coordinates, locations where resistance cells could find supplies, weapons, and support. The human resistance was no longer hiding in the shadows. The galaxy's real war was about to begin. Amy Collins stood before the largest gathering of human military leaders since Earth's fall. The asteroid base had grown beyond recognition. "What?" started as a hiding place for refugees, had become the headquarters of a real army. The Terran Liberation Fleet was ready for its next phase of operations. Operation Reclamation begins today, Amy announced to the assembled commanders. As Supreme Commander of all human forces, she had spent months planning this campaign. The goal was simple, but ambitious. Liberate every human settlement under Coalition control. The first target was Alpha Centauri, humanity's oldest colony beyond Earth. The Coalition had conquered it during the initial invasion, turning the thriving settlements into slave labor camps. Millions of humans worked in the mines and factories, producing resources that fed the alien war machine. Captain Ben Taylor would lead the ground assault, while Lisa Parker commanded the orbital bombardment from her destroyer squadron. Jake Harrison's ships would handle space combat, using the swarm tactics that had proven so effective at New Geneva. Remember, Amy told them, we're not just fighting to win territory. We're fighting to save our people. Every human life in those camps depends on us doing this right. The Liberation Fleet jumped into the Alpha Centauri system just as the local star was rising over the main colony world. Coalition sensors detected them immediately, but the defenders were not prepared for what they faced. The human fleet had grown far beyond what anyone expected. Ships captured at New Geneva flew alongside vessels built in hidden shipyards throughout the Outer Rim. Former Coalition prisoners had been retrained as human crews, bringing their knowledge of alien technology to the Resistance. Defensive stations are powering up, reported Sarah Johnson from her scout ship, but their response is slow. I think we caught them during a shift change. That was not an accident. Intelligence gathered by Resistance spies had provided detailed information about Coalition schedules and procedures. Every aspect of the attack had been timed to exploit enemy weaknesses. The space battle was swift and decisive. Coalition ships found themselves facing enemies who seemed to know their every move before they made it. Human cyber warfare specialists, led by Mike Davis, had infiltrated the alien communication networks weeks earlier, giving them access to enemy battle plans. But the real shock came when the Coalition tried to call for reinforcements. Their distress signals disappeared into digital darkness, blocked by human hackers who had taken control of the sector's communication relays. They're cut off, Mike reported with satisfaction. No messages in, no messages out. As far as the rest of the Coalition knows, everything here is normal. As the orbital defenses fell, Ben Taylor's troops prepared for the most difficult part of the mission, liberating the prison camps without getting the prisoners killed. Coalition guards had orders to execute human captives if rescue seemed likely. The solution came from an unexpected source. Among the rescued scientists from earlier missions was Dr. Jerry White, who had worked on non-lethal weapons before the war. He had developed something he called sleep gas, a compound that could knock out guards without harming prisoners. It's completely safe for humans, Jerry explained as the assault teams prepared their equipment. But alien nervous systems react differently. They'll be unconscious for hours. The ground assault began before dawn, with human special forces teams infiltrating the camps through sewage systems and maintenance tunnels. The Coalition had built their prisons to keep people in, not to keep determined rescuers out. Ben Taylor's team reached the largest camp just as the guards were changing shifts. They released the sleep gas through the ventilation system, and within minutes, every alien soldier was unconscious. The human prisoners could hardly believe their eyes as their rescuers removed the electronic locks from their cells. "Is this real?" asked one prisoner, an elderly man who had been captured during the initial invasion 25 years earlier. "Are we actually being rescued?" "It's real," Ben assured him. "You're going home." But as the liberation continued, the Resistance discovered something that changed everything. Hidden beneath the main prison complex was a research facility where Coalition scientists had been conducting experiments on human subjects. The laboratories were a horror beyond imagination. Thousands of humans had been used as test subjects, with Coalition researchers trying to understand what made humanity so adaptable and resilient. The aliens wanted to know why humans could survive in environments that killed other species, why they could adapt to new technologies so quickly, and why they never seemed to give up hope. Lisa Parker's bombardment had been carefully planned to avoid the prison areas, but when Ben's team discovered the research facility, they called for immediate support. Some things were too evil to be allowed to exist. Burn it all, Amy Collins ordered from the fleet command ship. Every laboratory, every computer, every piece of equipment. Leave nothing that could be used to hurt humans again. The orbital bombardment that followed lit up the night sky like a second sunrise. Coalition research that had taken decades to complete disappeared in moments, along with any chance of the aliens learning humanity's biological secrets. As news of the Alpha Centauri liberation spread, something unexpected happened throughout Coalition space. Other species began to rebel. The images of human prison camps and torture facilities had been broadcast across the galaxy, and many aliens were horrified by what they saw. The Corvin warriors, who had been secretly helping the resistance, declared open war on the Coalition. The Meridian telepaths used their abilities to coordinate uprisings on dozens of worlds. Even some Zephyrian colonies began to question their government's actions. "We're not fighting alone anymore," Kelly Brooks reported from her diplomatic mission to the Corvan homeworld. "Half the galaxy is in revolt. The Coalition is collapsing from within." But the Coalition's response was swift and brutal. Unable to defeat the human resistance in open battle, they turned to weapons of desperation. Biological warfare had been banned by galactic law for centuries, but Overlord Vexstar authorized its use against human settlements. The plague was designed specifically to target human genetics. It should have spread through every human population in the galaxy, killing billions in a matter of weeks. Coalition scientists had tested it on prisoners from the research facilities, and the results had been promising, but they had made a critical error in their understanding of humanity. Earth's history of disease and adaptation had created a species with incredible genetic diversity and powerful immune systems. What killed some humans only made others stronger. Dr. Lisa Martinez was the first to understand what was happening when reports of the plague reached the resistance. "They're trying to wipe us out with biology," she announced to the medical team, "but they don't understand how human genetics work." The plague did kill many humans. Thousands died in the first wave of infection, but survivors began developing immunity at a rate that shocked Coalition scientists. Within months, the biological weapon had become almost harmless to the human population. Worse for the Coalition, exposure to the plague seemed to trigger adaptive changes in human survivors. Their immune systems became stronger, their reflexes faster, their ability to process information improved. The aliens had accidentally created a generation of humans who were superior to their ancestors. "Evolution in action," Patricia Lewis observed as she studied the medical data. "They tried to destroy us, and instead they made us stronger." The failed biological attack became the turning point of the war. Coalition member species who had remained neutral were horrified by the use of banned weapons. Many joined the growing rebellion, bringing their fleets and resources to the fight against Zephyrian rule. Amy Collins used this opportunity to transform the resistance into something larger. The Terran Liberation Fleet became the core of a new alliance that included dozens of species and hundreds of worlds. For the first time since the war began, humans had numerical superiority. The Coalition wanted to prove that humans were dangerous. Amy announced at the first meeting of the Galactic Liberation Council. "They were right. We are dangerous to tyrants, to oppressors, and to anyone who thinks they can destroy our freedom." The council met on a liberated Coalition world, in a building that had once housed alien administrators. Representatives from dozens of species sat together, planning the final campaign against the Zephyrian Empire. Jake Harrison looked around the room and marveled at how far they had come. 25 years ago, He had been a simple engineer watching his world burn. Now he was part of a galaxy-wide revolution that would determine the future of countless civilizations. "We have one target left," Amy told the Council, Zephyria Prime, the Coalition capital. "If we can take that world, the war is over." The plan was ambitious beyond anything they had attempted before. Every available ship, every trained soldier, every weapon and piece of equipment would be needed for the final assault. It would be the largest battle in galactic history. But as the Council prepared for the ultimate confrontation, reports arrived from Zephyria Prime that changed everything. Overlord Vexstar had issued a final decree: if the Coalition could not defeat the rebellion, he would destroy the capital world rather than see it fall to enemy hands. "He's going to kill billions of his own people," Kelly Brooks reported in horror. "Innocent civilians who have never hurt anyone." The Liberation Fleet had won every battle, freed every human colony, and gained the support of most of the galaxy. But now they faced their greatest challenge: how to save a world from its own leaders. Amy Collins looked at the star charts showing the route to Zephyria Prime. The final battle would not just determine who controlled the galaxy. It would determine what kind of future they were fighting to create. "We're not just liberating humans anymore," she said quietly. "We're liberating everyone." The largest fleet in galactic history emerged from quantum tunnels around Zephyria Prime, like a storm breaking upon an ocean. Thousands of ships from dozens of species had come together for this final battle. At the center of it all flew Earth's Wrath, carrying the hopes of every being who had ever dreamed of freedom. Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching enemy forces scramble to defend their capital world. Below them, Zephyria Prime gleamed like a jewel, a world of crystal cities and floating palaces where the Coalition's rulers had lived in luxury, while billions suffered under their rule. "Enemy fleet composition confirmed," reported Danny Foster from the tactical station. "They've pulled ships from across the galaxy. Everything they have left is here." Amy Collins spoke from the command channel, her voice reaching every ship in the Liberation Fleet. "This is it," she announced. 25 years ago, they tried to destroy humanity. Today, we end their empire once and for all. But the real challenge was not the enemy fleet, it was the world below. Intelligence reports confirmed that Overlord Vexstar had placed quantum bombs throughout Zephyria Prime's major cities. If the battle went against him, he would detonate them all, rather than face defeat. "We need to take out those bombs before we can assault the main fleet," Jake told his bridge crew. "But they're protected by the planet's shield grid." That was where Mike Davis and his cyber warfare team came in. Over the years, they had studied every piece of Coalition technology they could find. The Zephyrian shield system was powerful, but like all their technology, it had been designed by beings who thought they were smarter than everyone else. "I can create openings in the shield," Mike reported from his ship's computer core, "but only for a few seconds at a time. Our strike teams will have to be fast and precise." The battle began with Sarah Johnson leading a desperate flight through the shield gaps. Her squadron dove toward the planet's surface while enemy fighters tried to intercept them. Using the neural mesh interface, she pushed her ship beyond its normal limits, dancing between energy blasts that would have destroyed any other pilot. Behind her came Ben Taylor's Special Forces teams, using captured Coalition transport ships to blend in with planetary traffic. Their mission was to locate and disable the quantum bombs before Vexstar could trigger them. The space battle above was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human swarm tactics combined with alien fleet formations in a deadly dance of destruction. Ships from the liberated worlds fought alongside former Coalition vessels that had joined the rebellion. But Overlord Vexstar had one advantage: his enemies could not match desperation. As the battle turned against him, he prepared to carry out his final threat. "If I cannot rule the galaxy," he announced on all frequencies, "then I will show them the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire." His hand moved toward the detonation controls for the quantum bombs. One touch would turn Zephyria Prime into a burning wasteland, killing billions of innocent civilians, along with the Coalition leadership. But Ben Taylor's teams had been working frantically on the planet's surface, using intelligence provided by Zephyrian refugees who opposed their own government. They had located most of the bomb sites. One by one, the weapons were disabled by human engineers who had learned to think like their enemies. Bomb sites 7 through 12 are secure, Ben reported as his team finished their work in the capital city. But we missed some. There are still active devices in the outer districts. That was when Lisa Martinez made the decision that would define her legacy. She had spent years developing new technologies for the Resistance, but her greatest creation was about to be put to its ultimate test. All ships, this is Dr. Martinez, she announced on the fleet communication system. I'm deploying the quantum disruption field. It will neutralize any remaining bombs, but the energy surge might damage our own systems. The device she had built was based on the same principles as the ancient alien technology that had started the war. But where the original designers had used it for space travel, Lisa had found a way to create a field that could disrupt quantum structures across an entire planet. The field activated just as Vexter pressed the detonation controls. Nothing happened. The quantum bombs, designed to tear apart the planet's crust, simply stopped working. The Overlord stared at his control panel in disbelief. Impossible, he whispered. Our technology is perfect. It cannot fail. That was the mistake that had doomed the Coalition from the beginning, the belief that they were superior to everyone else. They had never considered that other species might find ways to improve on their designs, or turn their own technology against them. With the threat to the planet removed, the Liberation Fleet pressed its attack. Coalition ships found themselves surrounded by enemies who fought with desperate courage. Every vessel that fell was replaced by 2 more rebel ships emerging from quantum tunnels. But the final confrontation was yet to come. Overlord Vextar refused to surrender, even as his fleet crumbled around him. He ordered his flagship to ram Earth's wrath, preferring death in battle to the shame of defeat. Jake Harrison saw the massive Zephyrian battleship bearing down on his vessel. There was no time to turn away, no chance to avoid the collision. But he had learned something during his years of fighting. Sometimes the best defense was to attack. All power to forward shields, he ordered. We're going to meet them head-on. The 2 flagships collided in a burst of energy that lit up the entire star system. Both vessels were heavily damaged, but Earth's wrath held together while the Zephyrian ship began to break apart. Jake led a boarding party through the damaged sections, fighting their way toward the enemy command center. Zephyrian soldiers tried to stop them, but human determination proved stronger than alien technology. The final confrontation took place in Vextar's personal command chamber, surrounded by the wreckage of his dying ship. The Overlord was tall and powerful, enhanced by cybernetic implants that made him faster and stronger than any natural being. But Jake Harrison fought with something the alien could never understand: the memory of Earth burning, the faces of friends who had died, and the promise he had made to make their sacrifice meaningful. The battle was brief but fierce. Vextar's enhanced reflexes and alien strength were formidable, but they could not overcome the simple human refusal to give up. When it ended, the last ruler of the Coalition lay dead at Jake's feet. With their leader gone and their fleet destroyed, the remaining Coalition forces surrendered. The war that had raged for 25 years was finally over. In the months that followed, the liberated galaxy began to rebuild. Amy Collins became the first president of the new Terran Federation, leading a government that welcomed all species as equals. The Federation's constitution began with words that had been written in human blood. All sentient beings are created equal, and none shall be enslaved or oppressed. Admiral Rick Stone established the Galactic Defense Force, ensuring that no single species could ever again dominate the galaxy through military might. The new fleet included ships and crews from dozens of worlds. United by their commitment to protecting freedom, Dr. Lisa Martinez led the scientific council that oversaw the sharing of technology throughout the liberated systems. The quantum tunnel drives that had started the war became tools of peace, allowing rapid communication and trade between distant worlds. But perhaps the most important change was the simplest one. On every liberated world, children of different species played together in schools that taught cooperation instead of conquest. The old barriers of race and biology began to break down as beings learned to judge each other by their actions rather than their origins. The memorial to the human resistance was built on Luna Station, reconstructed in Earth's orbit. The names of every human who had died fighting for freedom were carved into walls of polished stone. But the inscription that visitors remembered most was simpler. They sought to break us, but we were already broken. They sought to silence us, but we found our voice. They betrayed Earth. Now we reclaim everything they took, and more. Jake Harrison stood before that memorial on the anniversary of Earth's liberation, surrounded by friends and former enemies, who had become allies. The galaxy was free, not just from the coalition, but from the idea that some beings were born to rule, while others were born to serve. Was it worth it? Asked Kelly Brooks, who had become the Federation's ambassador to the former coalition worlds. All the fighting, all the death, all the years of pain. Jake looked up at the stars, where ships from 100 worlds traveled freely between systems that had once been closed to all but the privileged few. Children who had been born in slavery were now growing up free. Species that had been enemies for millennia were learning to work together. Ask me again in 100 years, he said quietly, when those children have children of their own, and they grow up in a galaxy where freedom isn't something you have to fight for, it's something you're born with. The galaxy had been reborn, not through conquest or domination, but through the simple human belief that every being deserved the chance to choose their own destiny. The coalition had called humanity dangerous, and they had been right. Humans were dangerous to anyone who thought freedom was a privilege instead of a right. And now, finally, the galaxy was learning what that meant.